I hear in my hand, I have the first Android phone ever built. And this was launched September 2008 by HTC. And we built this because we believed in the promise of the internet, right? This first Android phone was also the first open source mobile operating system. And we believed in an open internet, an internet where we can share knowledge, where we can collaborate. And this idea of Homo sapiens, right? At the bottom left, you see this Homo dictius. It's the term in Latin called networked man, networked human beings. We're meant to connect. We're meant to connect in open ways. But as we all know, this whole movement has been hijacked. And as I was walking the bookstores here in Helsinki yesterday, I saw many, many books by Yuval Harari. And all he talks about, and one of the things he talks about in this particular article and many of his books, is this idea of why technology favors tyranny. This thing that was open source became a railway to owning all of our digital identities, all of our digital personal data, and all of our digital assets. And so there's a handful of companies that own all of our data, and namely 7 companies, 4 in the West, 3 in the East. And they are the new tyrannies. It's the new feudal system. And that's why we built the first Android phone. This was the HTC dream. And we know, as I just said, that these corporate sovereigns divided humanity into a handful of walled gardens. And they're all anti-competitive, addictive, and destructive. But what's interesting is, as I said, September 2008 was the first Android phone. But only in November 2008, there was this other revolution. There was this white paper that was launched by Satoshi Nakamoto called Bitcoin. This over here is the first Genesis block. This was launched in January of 2009. And what I find fascinating is these two movements happened only a few months apart. Whereas on the one hand, we thought we were building the open source, open internet. And on the other hand, Bitcoin became this other sort of quiet revolution. And so today, where I'm here to share, and it's been 10 years, to talk about the Exodus phone. This is the first phone in which will allow you to own your private keys. And later, I want to invite my guests to talk about why owning your private keys is important, why securing that is important, what we didn't architect into the internet in the first place, this idea of security that was architected in. And so this idea of the Genesis block and the Exodus phone, why that is the foundation for us to build the next internet. And so this is the Exodus 1. And as it was announced, we currently only accept cryptocurrency. Right now, it's 0.15 Bitcoin and 4.78 ETH. And so the first thing I want to introduce you today, this new cryptocurrency that we're going to accept today for the payment of the phone. And it's funny that this number 1984 came along. As we all know, 1984 is the book that signifies Big Brother watching, surveillance. And so here I want to introduce Charlie Lee around this number 1984. And so the reason why is 1984 because it turned out we're pegging the price of the phone to Bitcoin. And when we pegged it at 0.15, the day we did the conversion, it happened to be 1984. So I'm happy to invite Charlie as a guest. And I just wanted you to sort of ask, why did you start Litecoin, and how did you get introduced to Bitcoin while you were at Google then, right?
Yeah, so I first heard about Bitcoin in 2011. And I immediately saw like the potential of Bitcoin, right? Becoming it's a better form of money than we've ever seen, even better than gold. So I saw it as digital gold, and in late 2011, I was playing around with the code and decided to launch my own cryptocurrency, Litecoin, and I positioned it as silver to Bitcoin's gold, right? So I saw Bitcoin as digital gold and Litecoin as digital silver. And I kind of just went with that, and it stuck, and it's been that way ever since.
And so, Charlie's you've been an advisor to this product.
Yeah.
And, in the beginning, we talk about building, a secure enclave within the phone because we want people to hold their own keys. And holding your own keys is the foundation to being able to own your own identities and data. So I'd love to sort of hear what you think about the importance of holding private keys.
Well, the thing with like Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, it's kind of, I see it as like freedom of money, similar to how the internet brought out freedom of information. But the downside of that is that you have to protect your money yourself, right? Previously currently with the banking system, if you put money in a bank, if they lose your money, they owe you money, right? So they protect the money for you. And with cryptocurrency, you have it on your computer. If your computer gets hacked, the hacker can potentially steal all your money. So I see security as a kind of like a really critical thing that we have to solve, right? Security and usability. So it's very important to be able to secure your own coins. A lot of people currently store their coins on like an exchange or an online wallet, but then you're relying on third party to secure your coins for you. And we hear a lot about exchanges getting hacked and wallets getting hacked. So that's still not safe. So you have to be able to secure it yourself and in a way that's easy for everybody to be able to do, right?
Yeah. And so one of the things that we've built is we're calling it Zion. So Exodus is the phone, and the wallet is called Zion. And what Zion is it's basically it's a secure enclave within the phone, and it's separate from Android to be able to handle and secure your private keys. And this is the space in which that's away from all the hacks or connections that you would usually see on the internet. And so, as you were beginning to talk to, these are sort of on the market. You can see we've heard a lot about hot storage, cold storage, and as you can see here, software wallets or hot storage are mostly today, I would say 80-90% of the people who have crypto, they hold their keys actually in these exchanges. And these exchanges are online, right? And that's why it's called hot storage. These exchanges have your private keys, and so it's very easy to use, right? But then the downside is it becomes very unsecure, right? And then in the middle, you see cold storage, right? There are many products, these USBs, sticks like Ledger, for example, is a popular one. And these cold storages, they hold the private keys within these USB sticks, and they're called cold storage because once you unplug it, it's offline, right? But then the downside to that is that it's not very usable, right? The good side is it's very secure, right? And I think what we're doing with the Exodus and the Zion is what we're calling hardware wallets. And hardware wallets is a very different thing than both hot and cold storage. I think it's technically wrong to call it cold storage. It's also, of course, not hot storage because it's a separate computing environment, right? And so kind of like what Charlie said, it's this kind of, when you talk about security, there's always this balance between security and usability, right?
Well, there's a trade-off, right? So on the software wallet side, it's very easy to use, but it's less secure, right? So you won't trust a lot of money. You won't put a lot of money in it because if your phone gets stolen, then they will just easily just take your coins, or your computer gets hacked. With the cold storage, it's very secure. You have it like in your bank safe or somewhere safe, but it's hard to use. You have to go and get it, and to spend it, it's really hard to use.
How many
So
ledgers or cold storage wallets do you have?
I've played around with quite a few,
Okay.
like a dozen, right? So they're all very neat. I mean, Ledger has sold like over 1 million of their units, which is quite a bit. But it's still relatively hard to use. So yeah, so something like the HTC Exodus phone, try to bring these two together, right? Something that's easy to use and also secure.
Yeah. And so what is also fundamentally different, as I was alluding to, is if you can think of hot storage maybe as your checkings account and cold storage as your savings account, I think what we do is kind of in between, but because it's a new trusted computing environment, it allows you to do more as well. Of course, the thing right now is about storing your cryptocurrencies and your crypto assets. But the way we see it, as you can see, is, again, it's separate from the Android world. And we see this as a new computing platform. And here we want to work with all the developers in the crowd. We want to provide key management APIs that you can build on top of this computing platform. And so whether you're a wallet, you're an exchange, or you're a dApp, or you're any type of third-party developer, when you want to extend your security into our hardware, when you need to use the users' or consumers' private keys, then you would utilize our key management API. And that's kind of the premise and why we're building and what we're building with Zion. And so this is why holding your own keys is important, right? But like Charlie was saying, it's a balance between usability, right? What we're offering is better control, better security, and of course, securing your property rights. I think right now, the question then becomes, if there's so much value that's on these phones, right? Your private keys are on there, your cryptocurrencies, and in the future, your identity or your digital assets. What happens when you lose your phone? And here is when we want to show a video of what we call social key recovery. No other device has ever given users ownership of their private keys. Owning the Exodus One means first owning your keys, cryptocurrencies, and crypto assets. This lays the foundation to later owning your digital identities and personal data. With the power of owning your private keys comes the responsibility of keeping it safe. The problem is what happens when you lose your phone. When Exodus One empowers you with your keys, it also means that HTC or any third party does not have a copy of your keys in some centralized cloud. Just like in real life, when you're lost or need answers, we've designed a mechanism for you to rely on your close family and friends for backup. Besides using your unique 12-word recovery phrase, you have the choice to opt in to restore your wallet through the Zion social key recovery mechanism. Using a cryptographic form of secret sharing, we split your recovery phrase into 5 different parts. These parts are encrypted and given to your trusted family and friends. To set it up, follow these steps. First, send the Zion social key holder invite to 5 of your chosen family and friends. Second, confirm your trusted contacts with the code. That's all it takes to store a backup to your key. So if you ever lose your phone or recovery phrase, simply ask the chosen 5 to send a code back to you to initiate the recovery process. With just 3 out of the 5 key holders, you can restore your wallets. Now that you've done that, you're becoming an informed global digital citizen and on the path to taking ownership of your digital identities, data, and crypto assets. Zion Social Key Recovery, Exodus, rebuilding trust one phone at a time. And so that's our social key recovery mechanism, right? And just to repeat, this is the first time any company doesn't hold your keys. There's no, like Charlie was saying, there's nobody to call when you lose your phone or when you lose your crypto, right? But here we've built a system in which you can rely on your friends and family to recover your keys.
I think what's important is that there's no central party that controls it, right? So there's no one company to hack to steal all the funds.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah, I think the whole point of this is, distributing the risk, right, or decentralizing, right? I think here what we're talking about with increased security is there's no central place where 150 million people's, credit card or credit information, credit scores can get hacked, right? If you want to hack, you have to hack one phone at a time, right? And of course, it takes a lot of energy to do that. And so, yeah, that's the whole point of people owning their private keys, distributing the risk, that there is no one point in failure, right? Even us spreading your risk among 5 of your family and friends, there's also no sort of one point in failure. Yeah. Why don't you talk about this more in terms of, this distributed risk and security and,
Well, it's important for just the average person to be able to spend crypto, right? So right now, one of the reasons why cryptocurrency has yet to take off, it's a very speculative currency right now, and people aren't really using it because it's just harder to use, right? Controlling your own money makes it hard. So I see products like the HTC Ectas to help us get to mass adoption, right? Make it easy for people to secure the coins and to spend them. I think the key thing, the next step for cryptocurrency is to move to a stage where people are actually using it for purchases, right? It's one thing to use it as a store of value where you're holding your money. It's another where it's actually easy to spend. And I think that's what money is all about in the end, right? And we need to get there. And it's great that HTC and others are helping us get to a point where cryptocurrency is easy to use and to spend.
I see. So what you're saying is, instead of all the speculation around store of value, you want to get people to start using it as a transaction and medium of exchange, right?
Yeah. Today, like using a credit card or mobile payment is very easy, right, compared to cryptocurrency usage. So we want to get to a point where it's just as easy.
This is one of the things that, as we always hear, people talk about privacy. I think what's fascinating is, I think especially here in Europe because of GDPR, but I think in the US or in Asia, people talk about privacy. But people say they care about privacy, but behaviorally, people actually don't care. But I think there's something more fundamental than privacy, what we're doing here, when you start owning your private keys. And it's, of course, this concept called digital private property. And here in the slide, the idea I'm trying to express is, if you looked at sort of the significant revolutions in the past, and namely these 3. One is the agricultural revolution. What defined the agricultural revolution was the definition of real estate property. Only when that was defined, then there was a marketplace or economics, and then wealth was unlocked amongst the masses. And then a similar thing happened in the Industrial Revolution, right? The definition of intellectual property, right? As we all know, that also took us into another, economy around how to monetize on our ideas and intellectual property. I think right now, what frightens me about the internet is we're this far down this information age, and there's no concept of digital private property. There's no concept of everything's public right now, right? And so when we talk about privacy, it's what is privacy, right? And so, yeah, what do you think about this? What does privacy mean? What does digital private property mean? Yeah.
Well, I guess it's a right to be private, right? To own your own data. So I think people are waking up to this with the recent Facebook fiasco. People are getting more cognizant of how they should protect their own privacy, right? It used to be where everyone's willing to trade all their data for free products, right? And nowadays, I think people are more aware of what they're trading, what the trade-off is. And I think as we go on, it's going to become more and more clear that privacy is very important.
Yeah. Yeah, the way I see it is cryptography is this sort of technology that is the technology that will secure people's private digital data. And that's the reason why I got into this space is, of course, the same mechanism that's used to secure your cryptocurrencies and crypto assets is actually the same technology that I think what we're building that will secure your private keys and your private data. And so that's what we want to share today, this idea of the phone to start owning your keys. From a consumer standpoint, I think this is the beginning. And even though right now we're only accepting cryptocurrencies, we want to get this in the hands of people who have crypto, who use crypto to make our hardware wallet better. And then the second thing, of course, what we're talking about today is our Zion wallet, our hardware wallet. And this wallet is a new computing paradigm. I believe this, and this is the reason why I brought this first Android phone, which is 2008. And 10 years later, we're launching this. Because I do see this as a new computing paradigm. I see this as an opportunity to build security from the get-go, to allow users to own their own keys, and to use cutting-edge cryptography to start securing your private data, your private digital identities. Thank you.